You could not open a jar your great-great-grandmother opened with one hand. Your grip would fail, your shoulder would tire, and your legs would give out long before hers did. This is not an insult, it is biology. For most of human history, an average day required more raw physical force than almost any modern job. Your body still carries the blueprint of that world, even though you may never use it. So why were ancient humans so strong? And why, if the blueprint is still inside you, do you feel so far from it? Start with the bones, because bone is living tissue that thickens where it is stressed and thins where it is not. This means a skeleton is a kind of diary, written in calcium, recording exactly how a person moved through their life. In 2017, researcher Alison McIntosh at the University of Cambridge scanned the arm and leg bones of prehistoric Central European women. She compared them to the bones of modern athletes, including competitive rowers. The prehistoric women's arm bones were not just close to as strong, they were significantly stronger than the rowers. These were women who spent their days grinding grain by hand, a repetitive twisting motion that took hours every day for years. McIntosh's conclusion was blunt. Modern reference data has been quietly underestimating female strength for generations. This is simply because no living population of women does that much daily manual labor anymore. Christopher Ruff, a biological anthropologist at Johns Hopkins, spent decades studying cross-sectional bone geometry. This is a measurement of how thick and dense a limb bone is at its cross-section, like reading the growth rings of a tree. Ruff and his colleagues found that human leg bone strength has declined significantly since the shift to farming roughly 10,000 years ago. And it has declined even more sharply since industrialization. Why? Because for nearly 300,000 years, being a Homo sapiens meant walking 10 to 15 kilometers a day, carrying things the entire way. They were not walking on a flat sidewalk, but over rock, root, and riverbed. They did this while carrying a child, firewood, water, or the carcass of an animal that fed the group for a week. Picture it. Dawn breaks orange over dry grassland, and a hunting party has been tracking a wounded animal since before sunrise. There is a method called persistence hunting, still practiced today by a handful of groups including the Sand People of the Kalahari. Hunters chase an animal not with speed, but with relentless endurance in the heat of the day until the animal overheats and collapses. Some persistence hunts documented by researcher Louis Liebenberg lasted more than 5 hours across 10 or more kilometers. They ran under direct sun without stopping. No modern gym replicates that, and no treadmill demands it. That is not a workout. That is Tuesday. Then there is the cold. Anthropologist Eric Trinkaus has spent much of his career analyzing Neanderthal skeletons. One thing shows up again and again. Neanderthal limb bones were extraordinarily thick and dense. They were much thicker compared to modern humans, even those doing heavy labor. Trinkaus argued this reflects a life built entirely around close-range confrontation with large, dangerous animals. In an Ice Age landscape with no long-range weapons to create distance, you did not throw a spear from 50 meters. You got close, you grappled, and every hunt was, in effect, a fight. Layer all of this together and a pattern emerges. Strength was not optional. It was not a lifestyle choice or a fitness goal. It was the minimum requirement for staying alive until tomorrow. Here is the counterintuitive part. Ancient humans were not strong because they trained like athletes. Most of them never lifted a modern weight, never followed a program, and never optimized a rep range. They were strong because they never had the option not to be. Strength was a side effect of survival, not the goal of it. A grain-grinding woman was not trying to build forearm strength, and a hunter was not trying to build a Neanderthal shoulder girdle. The strength arrived automatically as the unavoidable byproduct of a life with no elevators, no cars, and no chairs designed for 8 hours of sitting. And no food ever arrived without being carried, chased, dug up, or ground by hand. You, on the other hand, live in the first few thousand years out of roughly 300,000 where a human being can go from birth to death without ever being required to lift, carry, or walk far. You can survive without ever gripping anything harder than a phone. Your muscles do not know this as progress, and your bones do not either. They were built by evolution to expect resistance. When that resistance disappears, they do not become efficient. They simply weaken. From a biological standpoint, unused strength is wasted strength. Your body is always trying not to waste energy on tissue it thinks you no longer need. This is part of why modern sedentary life is not just inconvenient for your body. It is fundamentally unfamiliar to it. It is unfamiliar in a way almost nothing else in the last 300,000 years has been. So the question is not really why ancient humans were strong. Strength was simply what happened when a human being tried to survive without machines. The real question is, what happens to a body engineered for that world when it is placed in this one instead? You already know the answer because you can feel it. It shows up as a stiff lower back after a day at a desk. It shows up as legs that fatigue on a hike your ancestors would have shrugged off before breakfast. It shows up as a grip that struggles with a jar lid your great-great-grandmother opened without a second thought. The strength did not vanish from the species. It is still written into the same genetic blueprint that built a persistence hunter's legs and a grain grinder's forearms. It is simply waiting for a reason to be used again. You could not open that jar with one hand right now. But the body that could is not a different species from yours. It is the exact same one, finally asked to do something it was actually designed for.